Hey everybody, I'm Ivonix, and this is a case of distrust. I have gotten my merry self back to the Tin Spoon Lounge because, one inconsistency I realized was that, Ella here said that, she didn't know Tiny Paul that well, but, and I think it was I don't remember his name, the musician who was at, Red Stable's barbershop, had said that, like, she had been throwing herself at Tiny Paul, so let's ask her about that. Statements. Ray Carter, that was his name. He said that Ella flings herself at Paul, so let's ask her about that. Ray Carter tells me that you and Tiny Paul are close, I said. Is that true, Miss Smith? Smith squinted at me hotly, then let out a sigh. Okay, he's right, she blurted. I'm in love with Paul. That's no crime. It was obvious she'd wanted to hide the relationship. If the two of them ever broke it off, her career would be doomed. I scolded her. To hell with whatever morality she had, I told her. Her dreams were at stake on account of her actions. Oh, please don't let this get out, she pleaded. I saw my opening. Where is Tiny Paul? Aha. She sighed and gave me the address of a Pacific Heights apartment building. He lives in a penthouse on the top floor. Just don't tell him I told you. I thanked her for Paul's address and changed the subject. I don't think there's anything else to ask her about at the moment. Yeah, okay, we're gonna go to Tiny Paul's place. Turn back to the room. And I got the hell out of here. Alright, Tiny Paul's apartment. Tiny Paul was in his Pacific Heights penthouse. If I had any questions for him, I could go there. Go here! Will this cab driver have anything to say? Yeah, no, I guess I really have run through all the conversations that you can have with the cab drivers. Right, Paul's building was still new, built only a few years earlier, but it was already a beacon of Pacific Heights. Tall and proud above its surroundings, its crisp vanilla interior was accented with gold, and its elevator was run by an equally immaculate operator. I rode it to the top floor bungalow that belonged to Tiny Paul. Oh man, is he like passed out drunk? Paul's home was extravagant. Every item adorning the apartment was of high quality, but there was an evident lack of finesse to their combination, as though Paul had simply purchased expensive accoutrements without any thought for design. Alright, let's take a look around before we talk to him. Hat hung from the rack. As did an empty gun holster. Aha! Suspicious. Shoes. Paul's light brown shoes were discarded beside the couch he lay on. Can't look at the pictures. What is that? A wrapped bouquet of flowers lay on the table. They were a vibrant yellow. They reminded me of flowers I'd seen earlier, but I couldn't place them at the moment. There was a plant. Yes! Vibrant petals fell. They were still vibrant yellow. Okay, so yeah, there was like a wilted plant at Green's apartment. Aha, so that's interesting. Couldn't place them at the moment. Ha, now I've placed them. A cluster of brown glass bottles were on the far table. They were empty. Couch and chairs had patterned olive-colored cushions. Their arms and legs were a gaudy shade of gold, matching the gold of the tables. And what is this? The oil paintings that hung on the wall had no particular theme. One had roses, another showed a landscape, but each of their frames was ornately carved from a fine wood. Okay. I guess that's all we can click on. So, hey, Paul, wake up. Tiny Paul was sprawled across his Chesterfield, smelling of rubbing alcohol. I said hello. It took a century, but his eyes eventually climbed to meet mine, and he slurred a greeting. I figured a drunk Tiny Paul could be more honest. I thought it was a good time to grill him. Yes, let's ask about the notes. Let's just start with the basics. Green is dead. He's killed with a .45. I told Paul that Green had been killed with a large automatic. He replied sardonically, "What is our country coming to? So many people owning firearms. Tisk, tisk." Right, Green was found close to the Tin Spoon. Your speakeasy, dude! Green was killed around midnight, I told him. Do you remember anything then? After the jazz stopped playing at 10, I went up to the pool room to shoot. I think the whole band came in. We played cards until early in the morning. So you were in the Tin Spoon all night? I asked. After 10, he nodded, though I did leave before then. I met with Redstone Stable at 9 o'clock, then around 5 in the morning. It seemed like he hadn't slept much. Interesting. You met with Stable, I asked. Why? I ain't telling you that, sister. Why should I believe you at all? Believe what you want, Then why should I believe you at all? Believe what you want, he snorted. I was in the pool hall when Green was shot. Okay. I'll ask about more notes before challenging him on anything. Let's ask about the flowers. I noticed the flowers on your ottoman, I said to him. A vibrant yellow, though I didn't peg you as a tulip kind of gal. Well, he hiccupped, you hardly got to know me. Who are they for, Paul? My mother, he said with finality. Tiny Paul didn't strike me as a man who would buy a dozen flowers for his mother. He wouldn't tell me who the flowers were for, but I let it go just then. But the flowers at... Oops. There were the flowers at Green's house. Ah, I know a girl who likes flowers like the ones on your table, I said to him. Called Green, but she likes yellow flowers. How do you figure that? I don't think he liked the way it figured. He stared at me, eyes ablaze. That told me all I needed. Tiny Paul was Fanny Green's admirer. What are you saying, Malone? I thought of accusing. Tiny Paul of killing Green, accusing someone of murder, was certain to agitate them. I knew it was not something I should do lightly. Yeah, I'm not going to accuse him just yet. He would refuse any further casual chats, but if I was confident that Paul had killed Green... Okay, let's not accuse him yet. Ask about notes. Reconsidering our accusation. Well, now that Green's dead, I guess we can tell him that the Oakland past is a lie. Please say that Green was a ghost in San Francisco before 1920, I told Paul. And now he's a ghost here, too. What do you want me to say, Malone? Maybe, well... Okay, so he doesn't really care about that anymore. Maybe now I can tell him that the wine was fake, too. Early this morning, he soared. I went to, well, you don't need to know where. Even inebriated Tiny Paul knew enough to not give away family secrets. Anyhow, it's enough to tell you this. Green was pulling the bait and switch. He wanted to take our money and get out of the city. He had no plan to sell us any of the stuff. So yeah, I'm glad he got what was coming to him, but no, he extended the last letter. I'm not the one who plugged him. Well, that certainly sounds like a motive, at least. As much as Paul claimed to not be responsible, I wondered how much I could trust the word of a gangster. At least his drunken speech had given me a possible motive. Okay. Well, first let's ask him about Fanny not being in the pool hall at midnight. Al Smith tells me little Fanny was absent from the billiards room at midnight, I told him. So? He asked impatiently. So was she? Malone, when I've got my head down to poker game, the building could burn to the ground and I wouldn't notice. I know she came up with us and I walked her to a cab when we left. Otherwise, I don't know who was in or out of the billiards room. Well, let's ask him about Ella being in love with him. Al Smith tells me that you two are lovers, I put to him. He let a low grumble. Smith was beautiful, but she was Chinese, and Paul wouldn't sit well if rumors swirled about the two of them. Paul, I pressed, is she lying to me? Paul sighed. No, and followed with, it's just petting between us, nothing more. I thought you were seeing Mrs. Connor Green, I told him. I'm not married, he said with a sharpness to his words. I can do as I damn please, and those women are both emancipated, right? I said, all right, and dropped it. Okay. That doesn't lend anything else. Well, let's ask about the gun then. I described the gun I'd found to him, and how it matched the type gangsters were known to carry. His jaw stiffened. Paul's deep breath carried more booze than a bootlegger's truck. I don't like being called a gangster, Malone, he slurred, but fine, I do carry a gun like that one, and mine is in its proper place. Contradict! His gun holster is empty. Holster. I pointed to the empty holster in the room. That strap just hold your slingshot? Where's the gun? His jaw stiffened. I keep my gun in that holster, and when I'm not at home, that holster stays on my person or in my jacket. So where is it now, Paul? What if I told you I lost it yesterday? How could you disprove that? I raised an eyebrow. A weak story, Paul. Weak or not, it's what I'm telling you. What are you going to do about it? Just asking questions, I said to him. A detective has to cover all her leads. Paul took a heavy sigh, but In his drunken state, he didn't do much more. Interesting. So... the only thing we're not sure of, I mean, he definitely has the means and motive, obviously, but he just doesn't have the opportunity as far as we've seen. Yeah, he told me I was playing cards upstairs from 10 o'clock until early morning. Alright, well, we have learned some new stuff. Meaning we can probably go and ask Redstone's stable about a little more. Or, we could probably, also... we could, tell, Ella about Paul being an admirer of Mrs. Green and see if that leads anything. Alright, let's leave him be for the moment. Gonna go and back to the racetrack and ask Redstone's stable about what Paul said. Let's skip talking since we've run out of conversations. Hey, Mr. Stable. Redstone, what an odd name. Okay, evidence. Tiny Paul. Oh, someone close could snag his gun. According to Tiny Paul, Redstone's stable hadn't slept from when they'd met at 9 p.m. last night to their next meeting at 5 a.m. this morning. Tiny Paul tells me that you two met last night, I put a stable, and then you met again early this morning. He says you looked very ragged, not much sleep then. Very well, stable side. I do admit that I spent yesterday searching for information on this case, and that perhaps the search bled into this morning. In my situation, would you not also look for clues against Green, a man who had accused you of blackmail? I must have beamed at him, armed now with the knowledge that Stable had no alibi for the previous night. Yeah, so he has no alibi, but... However, he continued, in my search to clear my name, I did find a fact that might interest you. A fact that I had kept to myself, but if Paul wishes to lay claims at my feet, I might as well tell you. I looked at him quizzically. The Tin Spoon has a back exit. Patrons likely have no suspicion of it, but I'm certain many of the staff know. They could enter and leave without anyone noticing. Aha! And how do you know this, I asked. Never mind how I came about the information, just be thankful I'm giving it to you. If you do not believe me, I encourage you to ask others about it. This was a peculiar development. I noted it and continued my questioning. Okay, well that's useful to know. Now I can go and ask, Ella and Fanny about it, probably. Or I could ask Paul about it, too. Go back all the way back to his house. Okay, let's... at this point, let's go back. Let's go to Green's house first. Go ask about, go talk to Mrs. Green. Real quick. Oh, we could also ask, Ray, is that his name? About, back exit, too. Everyone. Alright, Mrs. Green. I hear Paul is an admirer of yours. I've had a few sources connecting you and Tiny Paul, Mrs. Green. Is he your lover? Her face turned crimson. She denied my claims with just about every word in the thesaurus, but that face had told me enough. Her and Tiny Paul were having an affair, which could give her enough motive to kill her husband. Oh boy, she has motive too. Now we shall ask about the Tin Spoon's back exit. I hear rumors that the Tin Spoon might have a back exit. Fanny shook her head slowly. I haven't heard those rumors. Sure. Tiny Paul's gun is missing. And he says only somebody close to him could grab it. What are you implying, Miss Malone? She questioned. Just saying that anybody in the billiards room could have taken his gun, and you were close to Tiny Paul, so I'm sure he wouldn't mind if you had taken it, I concluded. She didn't like that conclusion, but it fit that she had access to the murder weapon. That is kind of narrowing in on, like, means, opportunity, and motive to her, because, I mean... Ella said that Fanny wasn't in the pool hall. But did you know that Ella Smith is also in love with Tiny Paul? Gave a simple shrug, her face devoid of any emotion. Okay, she doesn't have anything to say about that. So let's ask about the flowers then. Again, okay, nope. Well, we'll leave her be. Let's go see if Ray Carter tells us anything about the Tombstone having a back exit. So much running around at this point. In we go. Hey, pal. He's just been sitting there for hours and hours. His hair half cut. So... I hear the Tin Spoon has a back exit. This source tells me there's a back exit in the Tin Spoon. Back exit? No, I'm afraid I've never heard such a thing. Well, fine. So, yeah, your, Ella admitted she was in love with Paul. Oh, oops, I didn't actually hit question, I just hit my notes. Ask about notes. There we go. Told Carter that his hunch about Ella Smith and Tiny Paul was correct. Yeah, I'm just blathering everyone's business all over town. Marvelous, he smiled. I think Fanny might want to know about that, too. I raised a questioning eyebrow. He responded by laughing heartily. Oh, Tiny Paul and little Fanny have had something brewing as well, he said, but you didn't hear it from me. Tiny Paul was apparently indiscreet in his relationships. Okay, well, we already told Fanny about that. Right, well, I am, pretty sure that Ray is probably not the killer. I guess we'll go back to Ella. Ask her about that back exit. Yes. Skip the conversation this time. And here. Talk to Ella. Ask about notes. I was told the Tin Spoon has a back exit. What do you know about this? Ella Smith nodded. Yes, we do have one. It's behind the women's changing rooms. I can't imagine any of the men know about it. They would never be able to get back there without causing a riot. But the girls use it whenever we need to slip away from the customers who are, she paused, too eager. So, there's a back exit to the Tin Spoon that only the women know about. That's right, she said. Oh, and Fanny denied knowing about it, so... But she's saying that the women know about it. Well, alright, I guess we will run back to Mrs. Green now. Now that we can actually properly, I think, contradict her statement about not knowing about the back exit. Yeehaw. Don't skip the conversation. Hello again, Mrs. Green. Alright. So... let's bring up the back exit. Oh! She suddenly admits it. There is a back door that only the female performers can use. Is that right, Mrs. Green? Oh yes, she said. I think you're right. I stepped out at some point during the night, Mrs. Green admitted. Sometimes a girl needs fresh air, but I could not have been gone long. I was in the billiards room most of the night, so Mrs. Green had no alibi at the time of Connor Green's death, so... I noted that and continued asking her other questions. Does that mean... I mean, it sounds like she has the... means... motive and opportunity Yeah, she has no alibi, she had access to Paul's gun, and she was having an affair with Paul, which would have been her motive. I mean, it seems like she has all of those. I'm just gonna, like, but before I, like, make any final accusation, I'm just gonna kind of, like, go around one more time and just see if I can't, uncover any more evidence or, like, anything else that'll, like, change that thought that it might actually be Fanny who did the deed, but, yeah, we'll see. Well, let's go accuse Fanny and see what happens, because, yeah, she's the only person who we've got all three, I think, like, definitively. Murder, motive, and opportunity. Means, motive, and opportunity, god. Alright. Hey, Fanny! It was you, wasn't it? Accusing someone of murder, yes, yes, yes. I was confident that she had killed Connor, including knowing the means, her affair, the motive- wait, the means, she had access to the gun, the motivation, the affair, and the opportunity. She knew about that back exit, and Ella said she wasn't in the billiards room at midnight. There we go, let's accuse her. Fanny Green, I started boldly, you killed your husband. A stillness permeated the room as I spoke my words. I can prove your means, motive, and opportunity for the murder. Fanny's face contorted, like I'd first seen her in Southern Coffee. She barked at me. What are you saying? I loved my husband dearly. How dare you accuse me of murder? She huffed her way out of breath, which gave me a chance to prove it. Prove means. She had access to Paul's gun. Tiny Paul's gun is missing, and he says only somebody close to him could grab it. What are you implying, Miss Malone? She questioned with raised eyebrows. That you were close enough to Paul to take his gun. She screamed until she was blue, but I didn't believe her denials. An affair could give her enough motivation to kill her husband, and access to Paul's gun would give her the means. Murder. Alright, let's prove, concerning her affair with Tiny Paul, she also would have had the perfect motive to kill her husband. I just need to prove that Mrs. Green had the opportunity for the murder. Well, there's simply the fucking fact that she had no alibi. You admitted to being gone for parts of the night, I told her. That could have given you the perfect opportunity to murder your husband. She huffed at that for a while, but it stuck. It was clear now. I put it to her. Mrs. Green, you're the only one of my suspects with provable motive, means, and opportunity for murder. You knew you had to leave your husband. You loved Paul, and, as often happened, you began hating Connor because of it. So you tailed him to see what he was scheming. Maybe you could sink his plans and have the mob do your dirty work. Then you met me. You learned your husband had been receiving death threats, and you knew that was your play. If he died, police would blame it on the underground. So last night, after your singing, you called Connor to the Tin Spoon. You snuck out of the billiards room the back way, taking Paul's gun with you. That's when you shot him. She looked at me hotly, about to burst, but then she sighed and stared down at her feet. She began to cry. However, many opiates were running through her blood. They had lost all their effectiveness. I put an arm around her as she wept. Yes, comfort the murderer. Connor had made my life miserable, she said between sobs. Look around this dump. That's how ruined I am inside. Oh, that manipulative little sneak. You're right, I hated him. It's why I started going with Paul in the first place, she balked at my surprise. Oh no, I never loved Paul. I wanted him to kill Connor. Oh dear. But after learning about Ella, she trailed off. Oh, how could I convince Paul if he loved someone else? I had no way of leaving Connor. I slumped back to misery. What about a divorce? I offered. Divorce! She screamed the word back at me. Connor would never give me that. He says we're emancipated, sure, but they say we're emancipated, sure, but we still need our husband's permission to leave his home. I was the only good thing that bum owned, and he would never let go of me. That's why I was chasing him yesterday, she continued. If I could prove infidelity, I'd demand a split in court. I got all excited when I saw you standing in your doorway. She started breathing more heavily. I had to follow you to make sure, but I was certain I had my out. Only, she sniffed, only it happened you were above board. You're a detective, and I was still trapped. Now you're even more trapped, going to jail. After we met, I came home to find Connor waiting for me. He said we'd be leaving for St. Louis. She took a gasp of air and continued, "Leaving everything I'd known for a place I've never been, with a man I didn't love. I couldn't do it, and I told him so. And then he struck me." She wiped away her tears, and with them came her blush with thick camouflage powder. A liver-colored spot the size of a silver dollar showed on her cheekbone. Jeez. "He just marched out that door," she continued through her waterworks, "and I didn't know what to do." "And then you thought of Paul's gun," I concluded for her. "That's right. Maybe Paul wouldn't kill Connor, but I knew he carried a cannon, and I knew I could get to it. So you took Paul's gun and killed your husband," I said. "No," she said. "No, that was my plan, but—" She broke off her sentence with a sniff and started another. "I went to Paul's apartment late in the afternoon and grabbed his pistol. Then I came back here. I sat in this chair, petting the gun in my hand, wondering if I would do it. That's when he came in." Who? "Your husband?" I offered. "No, a much kinder man. Oh, he listened so well. I even told him about—" She paused. "About my plan." "This other man, you knew him?" I asked. She nodded a yes. "He said he understood everything. He said he could frame the murder. He said not to worry. He took the gun." "Oh," she cried, "but I couldn't let him go through with it. You see, that's why I left the tin spoon last night, to stop him. That was when I met Redstone's stable." In response to my raised eyebrows, she explained, "I only met him last night. I had no idea that he had anything to do with my husband until this morning. The police told me at the station that Connor had suspected Stable." "What?" But I knew instantly that he was a terrible man. A woman's intuition never lies. Stable talks like a snake and the looks to match. "So you were both searching for the same person last night?" I asked. "Yes, but he wasn't around. I think—" She sobbed. "I'm tired of this," I said. "Who is it?" It's the owner of that hat," she said, pointing to it. "It's Franklin." "Oh, shit, it's Frankie! Frankie?" I asked. She continued slowly. "Yes, he took the gun from me yesterday. I was too dazed to argue. Wow, what a twist." "Nice story," I said, "but you still fit the bill just fine." "Phyllis, even if I had the gun, how could I know where to plant it? I only met Stable last night and I knew nothing about him. Franklin had known about the case from you, isn't that right?" "Yeah, that is right. That's right." "You're only telling this to me now," I asked. "What's the big idea stringing me along?" "Phyllis," she said softly, "Franklin did this for me. He saved me. If that awful man Stable has to take the fall so that Franklin can stay free, well—" She trailed off. I shook my head and looked at her. If she was telling the truth, Stable could confirm it. And if she was lying, I thought, what if she ran? Well, she would get stopped soon enough. Good looks can be a curse, and it would be a cinch to snatch her. Besides, with those opiates in her, she would have difficulty standing, let alone running anywhere. I gazed at her, and she understood what I was thinking. "I'll be right here if you come back." I wondered why she would fabricate such a story if she knew she was stuck. Then I thought, what if it was the truth? I had to speak with Frankie. "Oh no, Frankie! What have you done, Frankie?" All my actions from those moments blurred together. I only remember the thoughts racing through my head. "To Southern Coffee." As I hailed a taxicab for Southern Coffee, I went over the facts again, trying to deny them, but they all fit too well. Frankie had been infatuated with Mrs. Green, and he could have gone to visit her. He could have taken the gun. He knew about Stable from when I told him of the case, and he could have planted it at his racetrack. Those facts might be explained away innocently, but it was the combination. Frankie was the only person with means, motive, and opportunity to kill Green. I stepped out of the cab, hoping Frankie could give me another explanation for all of it. I walked down the creaking steps. That familiar basement smell added to the lump in my throat. "Frankie!" I must have spent some time looking around the place, inhaling it. Eventually my eyes fell on Frankie. He gave me his generous smile that I knew well. I pulled out the hat and showed it to him. "This hat belongs to you," I said in a flat tone. Frankie gaped. If I'd had any doubts, that look erased them. "You killed Connor Green." Frankie's next sentence was short, delivered after a sigh. I always remembered it. "I can't lie to you," he said. My jaw began to quiver, either from sadness or anger. It was hard to be sure. "Why get wrapped up in this?" I asked. "Does that dimpled girl mean so much to you?" Frankie shook his head. "This'll be a long story," he started. I let him talk. As heated as I was, I had to know why Frankie would kill my client. It's that sheet, he motioned to the newspaper flopped on the bar. 1887, the St. Louis Browns. My last good season. My career was ruined by Thomas Kinney. Kinney was a mob boss, you see. He ran St. Louis politics, above ground and below. He was cruel to everyone, sure, but he had a special hate for blacks. In 1887, that hate came to baseball. One practice, a local kid comes up to the fence and calls Murray, our left fielder, over to him. He tells Murray that every Browns player has to sign on to a letter which says that we refuse to play against the Brooklyn Cubans, a colored team. The kid then ran off. We all knew who the orders had really come from. If I refused to ink it, Kinney's gang would run me out of baseball, or worse. But some of the best teammates and people I'd ever known over the years had been black. I was torn up about it. In the end, I guess I was just a kid who wanted to play. I didn't want trouble. I signed with the others. It was the worst decision I ever made, Malone. It's haunted me since. I started on the hooch and I never played the same again. Just keep listening, I guess. I became the booze hound of St. Louis, in the dumps at every bar in town. But this louse had tales about old Thomas Kinney, and a way of telling them that kept the others interested. Maybe my rumors worked. Kinney lost the next election. Just a few weeks later, he died of tuberculosis. Kinney's partner, Tom Egan, blamed me for all of it. I knew I had to blow St. Louis, so I went to Philly, my hometown. I ran into my old pitching partner, Matt Kilroy, who had opened a bar. He invited me to run it with him, as long as I stopped drinking myself. Under his eye, I made it. I got sober by working in a speakie, if you can believe that. I even married Kilroy's sister and became stepfather to her 2 boys. I was engrossed. Well, by then, Egan renamed the gang, and Egan's rats had spread east. They came for me one night, and I barely ducked their spray. Lucky a cop was near his beat, or they would have circled around and finished the job. I had a great life in Philly, but I had to give it up. I couldn't put my new family in that danger. I fled out west, where I knew the rats didn't have a foothold. Philly was the second time those bastards ruined my life. I ended it for him, and when you discovered that Green was part of Egan's rats, you wouldn't let him ruin you a 3rd time. Frankie laughed. No, Malone. I could have run easy. My life here ain't much. I've nobody here, really. Am I not your friend, dude? Except you. There we go. Sure, I could flee somewhere else. But it's you. Egan's rats won't leave an end loose. If Green had reached St. Louis, they'd have come back and tied you up. I can run from town to town, but I can't make you do that. I was the one who told you to take the case, remember? I had to stop them from hounding the rest of your life. So it was for me? Wow, I stared at him without thought or emotion. He said, I did this for you. Poetic, Frankie, I countered. But this only proves you had no faith in me. Just like Green, who hired me because he thought I wouldn't see through his scheme, or his wife, who was hoping I would gum up the works for the police. You thought I couldn't hold my own. I'm just some flapper playing in a man's world, is that right? Frankie shrugged. I just wanted to protect you. I can protect myself, I told him, and without any murders. He sighed. I suppose I wouldn't blame you for taking me in, he said. No, I won't fight if you want to drag me to the hall. But the police have stopped looking for a killer. If you let me, I'd keep running. It's up to you. Does it? Oh, what difference will it make for the end of the game? Oh, man. Well, if I let him go, Fanny might know something's up, and she might cause problems for my career, at least with rumors, if, like, a rumor went around that I let him run. But, I mean, I don't know what difference it'll make for the end of the game. 2 different endings, maybe, but... let's go with the lawful good option and arrest the poor bastard. And that's it! Okay. No postscript? No epilogue? Like how they actually have like actors listed, like that's probably who the, the little character outlines were based off of. And thank you for playing. I mean, is it really just gonna go, like, back to title screen? Is it not gonna tell us, if there's any... Aha! Aha, here we go. I was like, come on, there's gotta be a little something more. It was a few mornings later that I received a knock on my door. A small man in a light blue uniform asked me to sign for a package and handed me an envelope and a brown box. I opened the envelope. Inside was the large, looped writing of Mrs. Frances Green. It was a long note spanning multiple leaves. I only skimmed most of it. She must have used every allegory known to man to apologize for her behavior in the case. She then claimed she was starting life anew, ridding herself of reminders of her late husband. Finally, she said she was sorry about Franklin and any part she played in his unfortunate actions. As I heard the name Franklin again, a drop fell and smudged the ink. I wiped my cheek before more drops could join it. Mrs. Green's note ended with the hope that this gift of hers would begin to remedy any grudges I'd had against her, though truly I felt none. I turned the box and removed one side of the tape from the cardboard, then snapped the flaps of the open with a couple of loud pops. Rolled in a loose ball inside the box was Lewis's gray coat. I put it on and looked at myself in the mirror. I grabbed the lapels and pulled them tight. The trench coat suited me. I wondered how Green had first gotten hold of it. That innocent question was about to lead to a lot of trouble. Uh-oh. Is that like a Lupin for a sequel or something? And it's back to the title screen. If I go... I'm curious, I'm gonna click continue really quick just to see if that... Okay, yeah, okay, so it leaves me... Alright, I'm gonna see if I'm just gonna quickly see if the epilogue is any different if we choose to let Frankie go instead. Alright, we're back at the epilogue. Let's see if this is just the same. Ah, no, it's a different letter now. Okay, I opened the envelope. Inside were Frankie's scribbles, only slightly more legible than hieroglyphics. The writing was curt. Blowing the burr, get started. Too much baggage around to keep this act going. Went back to the missus for my hat. Spotted this. She agreed you should have it. Hope it serves you well. You're becoming one hell of a detective. Good knowing you. The final two letters were obscured by a small wet blotch on the page. Thanks for everything, Frankie. I put the note away, but not before a drop fell on the name Frankie, creating my own small wet blotch. And then it's Lewis's gray coat again, and yeah. And voila, we are quite dashing in Lewis's gray trench coat. But yeah, that is the end of the game, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, that was I really like the visual, like for a visual interactive novel, it was very kind of unique layout and visual style and all that. The simplicity was really, it was nice. It was nice. Anyway, and I wasn't expecting it to be Frankie. I wasn't. It's like, I remember back near the beginning of the game, there was some mention of him being fond of Fanny, but then it like never came up again, so it just didn't occur to me. But, so yeah, hey, I didn't see it coming. But anyways, that was A Case of Distrust. Thanks for watching, and until next time, rock on.